I'm Charlie Bright with Gold Derby, and I am speaking with Tom Campbell, one of the producers on RuPaul's Drag Race, as part of our Meet the Experts panel on documentary and nonfiction programming. RuPaul's Drag Race, again, nominated for a slew of Emmys. Tom, the team has chosen to submit the second episode of season 13, Congratulations, for submission this year. And I was curious, what about that episode made it the one that the team wanted to submit for this season?
Probably a toss of a coin, because we love every episode. It's always hard to pick one. This season, we started off with a lip sync Lollapalooza, where all the queens came into the workroom where they usually meet each other. We had them go to the main stage and lip sync. And some were in the winner's circle, the congratulations circle, and some went to the pork chop loading dock. Pork chop was the very first queen to be eliminated from RuPaul's Drag Race season 1 in 2009, and we find a way to incorporate pork chop into every season of Drag Race. So that's how this is inside baseball, but people watch the show will understand. So I think the first episode was our first sort of competitive. Half the team was there. We introduced the drag queens now in 2 batches, because we usually have like 14 to 16 queens a year. And so we like them for the audience to get to know them. And we put them, drag queens are the sort of the Marines of a competition elimination show. And we put them through it where they show up in full drag, and then they had to do a fashion show doing 2 different sort of looks, daytime and nighttime. And then they had to learn and choreograph, record their own verse and choreograph their own performance to Congratulations, which is a RuPaul song. So that was a lot. We thought you get a good sample of the show with that little bit of episode.
You've been on the show for a while now. I think since the beginning, correct?
Very beginning, yeah.
So what was the first clue you had that Drag Race had ascended to this otherworldly level in our pop culture?
It was a slow burn for sure. Without going too far back, I'll go too far back. But, RuPaul knows Randy Barbato and Fenton Bailey. They've worked together and known each other since the late 80s. And I, through Randy and Fenton, got to know Ru in the 90s. And I was at World of Wonder in 2008 when I said, why are we doing something with RuPaul? And they said, well, talk to him. And so I went to Ru and I said, we have to do something, in this reality space. And Ru will go, I'll do anything but a competition elimination show. Because at that point, they were kind of dirty and kind of Joe Millionary, and they just sort of had a bad taste. And so we came up with a whole different idea, and then we were sort of presenting it to Randy and Fenton, and Ru laughed and said, you know what we should do? A competition elimination show. So we came 360, and we decided to sort of celebrate, we're parodying. What's great about Drag Race is that it parodies all competition elimination shows, and yet it is real stakes, real tears, and more than anything, this platform, a safe space for queer people to come, drag queens in this case, but they range a huge spectrum of the queer rainbow, where they feel safe to share their stories, they feel safe to share their creativity, to express, it's a lot of pressure cooker, any reality show, and they feel safe to let us help tell their stories and let them be seen and heard. I'm sorry to go far back, when we first pitched this in 2008, when George W. Bush was president, just to put it into context, we thought, well, for sure, RuPaul had, with the talk show on VH1 and Supermodel on MTV in the 90s, he had gone further than any other drag queen into the mainstream pop culture. Surely now people were ready, E! Or Bravo or anything, at the time, the big places to go. And we went, and they were like, we love you, we love World of Wonder, we love Ru, but, we can't do this kind of show. We can't, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And the only place that accepted our show was Logo, which was the LGBT network. And we be careful what you don't wish for, because we were kind of like, Logo, okay, although Brian Graydon was very forward thinking, and so we were on Logo, and it was a very small network, available in very few homes, and our numbers were tiny. So, you get your ratings back, you're like, 0.0001, like crazy low numbers. But it was like a true gay phenomenon, a queer phenomenon. It was sort of bubbling up from the street. I had a friend, Max Muchnick, who was a guest judge for an acting challenge. We did season 4 when we were still kind of under the radar, and he had someone, a friend of his, the day after his episode aired, call him from Vietnam. This is before streaming, to say, I saw your episode. It was great. It was leaking out. People were illegally downloading it, sharing it, and it became this phenomenon. And I think with the advent of, we did really well, with Logo, and with the advent of streaming and it being kind of this cult thing among queer people and queer people in the industry, what kind of flipped us over in terms of mainstream was Lady Gaga. RuPaul had been on Lady Gaga's Thanksgiving Muppet special on ABC. It's a mouthful. And she returned the favor by coming on our show, I think, beginning of season 8. And that, plus Chris McCarthy coming into Viacom and seeing the gem that Drag Race was, and with the Lady Gaga kind of stamp of approval, put us onto VH1. And between the VH1 and between, the streaming, it's become a global phenomenon, which is so amazing. This, like, talk about technology helping a group of people that would otherwise be marginalized by a small rating on a small network. We've been able to permeate. But to answer your question, you can call that out, is in the first season, we didn't know what to expect exactly. We knew that drag queen, it was an art to drag, and we wanted to celebrate that. But it was the moment where Angina, if you remember the first episode, first season, we did a MAC Commitment to Life challenge where they had to sort of like speak positively about MAC and their work with HIV. And unbeknownst to us, on the main stage, Angina won the challenge because she did a wonderful job, and then broke down and said that she'd been secretly living with HIV, hadn't told her family for years. And it was this moment that just chilled our bones. And not that it's like, we try not to dwell in, not ignore it all, but Drag Race is a celebration. We don't dwell in our victimhood, in our tragedy. It's like, but it was an amazing moment, and we're like, wow, this is really a safe place for people to come and bare their souls, their beauty.
So, getting to the Emmys, Ru won his first Emmy for hosting in 2016, but the show didn't win its first Emmy for reality program until 2018. I'm curious, what was that night like for you and the show's team when you guys won that first Emmy for reality competition?
It was humbling. It was ecstatic. It was nothing we ever set out to do or thought was even in the possibility. It's just like we're doing this really fringe show, and we were up against The Voice that would win would win. And I don't think part of me, I also was like, I was a skeptic about gay marriage. I was like, is this really going to happen? Could it possibly in my lifetime? And it has. And so I think we're always humbled. We don't expect it. We're so grateful that it happens. We still feel like it's been mostly the same people for all this time at the core of it. And our job, we just try to make it better every year, from what we can do. But, the ingredient that makes the show fresh is the queens. RuPaul as this tentpole of sort of like drag excellence and sort of, in the best sense, like classic showbiz. Ru's like, give me the Sid Caesar 3 jokes. A Kate is funny, he like all that kind of stuff. And we all grew up on like Cara Burnett and, the Sonny and Cher and all that kind of stuff, and Monty Python. So we infuse that. And then the queens from all different walks of life, from all different backgrounds, who share in common, the love of drag and the art of drag, come, and the combination, people feel something, and it permeates throughout the queer community and beyond, which is such a blessing, really.
So let's have some fun here. Let's imagine you could get any 2 people to be guest judges on an episode of Drag Race. Any 2 people. Who would they be?
Book them together or separately?
Together always.
We say this a lot, and it's getting to be a bit of a boring, but Cher. We have wanted Cher on the show. We love Cher. We respect Cher. With all due respect, Cher is a drag queen, and so we want her on the show. We've had so many of our idols. I guess the other would be, and I'm just aging myself, would be Diana Ross, who's another huge inspiration for RuPaul. RuPaul and I love Diana Ross and love the movie Grease more than anything, and that's how we bonded at a cocktail party in the 90s. So I think Cher and Diana Ross would be amazing. We've had, Ariana Grande, which is amazing. We have Nicki Minaj. We've had Lady Gaga. So I mean, we have this incredible the young stars, but it's always amazing to pay homage to our straight allies, if you will, our divas.
The original queens.
Thank you.
Just one other thing I wanted to ask. So the most recent season, 13, was shot during the pandemic, correct?
Yes.
What was that like, trying to get this type of show completed in the midst of social distancing and stay-at-home orders and all of that sort of thing?
I'm a guy. I have 2 earthquake kits in the back trunk of my car. I live expecting the worst thing to happen. I live in Los Angeles, and when we were we had been actually in the UK earlier in the spring shooting a UK season of Drag Race when COVID hit and we all had to disperse. So we all went home, and everything changed. And I really give it up to our production team, led by Amber Ellis at World of Wonder, and they just learned like everybody did. But we were truly one of the first shows back up, and it was learning the protocols, putting us in trailers, massive testing. People, I think, were so excited. The crew, our village. We say it takes a village, people, but everyone, I think, was so excited to be back together, to be able to work, that people were very compliant, wore masks, paid attention to the distancing. We're shooting a season this summer. The rules haven't changed. We're still being really respectful. But it was amazing. And I think on a personal note, I think, the queens had to quarantine. Already we put them through a lot and put them in hotels and things, but they had to quarantine, which I've been through a few quarantines too, where you're locked up for 14 days. And it changes you. You come out a different person, You've seen the dark side, you come back out. And also Ru's walkthroughs, which are always joyful and amazing, were longer and longer every episode this past season because it was time for human interaction, for Ru with the queens and queens with Ru. And so we made the best out of it. And I'll say this, when we finished our last episode, it was the same time that the COVID invaded the White House. And we realized at that moment that we had a better COVID protocol at RuPaul's Drag Race in Sylmar than they did at the White House. But what can you do? What can you do?
Oh, no, that's a note to end it on. Well, Tom, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at our panel in just a little bit.
My pleasure. Thank you.